All right, now here we are again. We're right on the cusp of great things happening for America. We got the big, beautiful bill going through the Senate. We got President Trump trying to resolve the Ukraine-Russian war. And at the same time, and President Trump just endorsed this individual for the Senate. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be regretting his decision to do that because this man is a snake. This video, we're going to talk about Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is the one Republican senator that I think is faker than a $4 bill. This man literally, I don't believe has a moral compass. I believe he's self-serving. I believe that he says whatever he needs to say for whoever's listening to him right now. I've watched him double talk on, acting like he's chastising Joe Biden while then giving a slight comment or talking about how much good friends they've always are and how he knows them while he's supposedly taking them out to the woodshed for a decision or for some legislation that he passed. But what this video is about today, more importantly, is that Lindsey Graham, he's a war hawk. This is one of our senators that loves to get the United States into war as often as possible. You know why? It's because the lobbyists, the war machine lobbyists, fund Lindsey Graham's campaigns and make sure that he lives a good lifestyle, allegedly. Another reason why I'm always so hesitant on anything involving Lindsey Graham or any politician for that matter that is a war hawk is when they don't have children and they're not married. That always freaks me out because you don't care about the young men and women that are going off, that are going to pass away or lose their life fighting for this country. It doesn't cost you a thing. And as a matter of fact, once you leave this planet, you have no concern about what's left behind. So politicians like Lindsey Graham are self-serving and they will drive this country off a cliff as long as they get taken care of. Think about it. Tell me, when have you ever seen or heard Lindsey Graham stand on anything that was good for the country but wasn't self-serving? He doesn't. He'll side with the Democrats when he needs to, and he'll say the things for the GOP when he needs to. He's one of those guys that'll talk down on the Democrats, and then right after he walks off the Senate floor, it's going right over to one of the Democrat senators' houses, say, hey, man, I was just saying that, in public, but I'm riding with you guys, right? That's him. So let's check out in this video. I'm going to break down what's going on because Lindsey Graham and Senator Blumenthal, Democrat Senator Blumenthal, decided that they were going to go over to Ukraine behind President Trump's back and put a battery in Zelensky's back. They don't want the Ukraine-Russia war to end. Understand why not? This whole thing has started. And in this video, RFK, I got a clip from RFK that really is going to lay insight. And it goes in detail. It's not a long clip. It's fairly short. But when you finish, this whole war machine will all make sense. Dwight D. Eisenhower, when he was leaving presidency and JFK was coming in, he gave a speech. And if you didn't see the speech, it's on YouTube. Listen to it. Because at the very end, the biggest warning that he gave to the next incoming president and presidents coming after that was the military industrial complex. This $1 trillion machine that makes money having people take each other's lives, having countries go to war. That is why you always see wars kicking off. Why? Because the people, the real power people, they fund both sides. They can care less who wins. They're tucked off in a very safe space, heavily guarded, and won't have to deal with any of the backlash. These are those who consider themselves to be the masters of the world. And right now, the war machine is pushing for Ukraine and Russia to go into battle. Why? Because if that happens, they're hoping that it somehow pulls the United States into it. And it almost happened. Joe Biden tried to get Ukraine accepted into NATO. And most people don't realize why that's a bad thing for America. It's because for any member of NATO that gets into a war, that means that every member of NATO has to go into war with them. So if Ukraine is a member of NATO, which means that America immediately is at war with Russia. And I'm talking about a real war leading to World War III, which is what every intelligent person wants to avoid, especially with the power of the nuclear weaponry that the Western countries, especially, and even China and some of the other big dogs have, where we can literally wipe each other off the planet like that. But you got war hogs who don't have any children or any legacy that they're worried about leaving behind, pushing for it. Now, while in Ukraine, Senator Graham ran up a $400,000 hotel tab. 400,000 taxpayer dollars went to funding his trip to Ukraine. Senator Blumenthal, similar, dropped another 400 grand. This trip reportedly, allegedly, is close to $900,000. Now, what in the world could Lindsey Graham and Senator Blumenthal be doing in Ukraine that cost them close to $1 million? What hotel are they staying at? And Lindsey Graham has been over there 8 or 9 times trying to keep Zelensky pushing this thing, while President Trump is saying, hey, y'all, let's come to some type of agreement. And what most people don't know, Russia actually presented agreement that was extremely favorable to Ukraine. And guess what happened? The Democrats told them, don't take it, resist it. As a matter of fact, push back. And what the media reports on, they report on when Russia does stuff, but we don't hear about the things that Ukraine does. So let's check this out. Now, Charlie Kirk, if you don't know, with Turning Point America, played a huge part in President Trump getting elected. So let's look at what he says. We're in serious trouble, America. Lindsey Graham is attempting to sabotage peace talks with Russia in Kyiv. This man is an embarrassment to the United States and will lose his seat this upcoming election.
President Trump said that Ukraine doesn't have good cards. Well, Russia's much bigger and has a lot more people. I get that. But the world has a lot of cards against Russia. And one of those cards that we have is about to be played in the United States Senate. In America, you have more than one person at the card table. We have three branches of government, and the House and the Senate are poised to act. What would change our mind if Russia came to the table, agreed to a ceasefire?
If you're enjoying this video, do me a solid and give me a thumbs up, because I'll never ask you for a super chat or a cash app, but you hitting that thumbs up, it really helps the channel, helps spread the information out. And if you aren't subscribed, subscribe. And once you do, make sure you hit the notification bell, then select all. And that way you'll be notified when I upload new videos. So he just said that, you know, what would help is if Russia came to the table, agreed to a ceasefire. Well, they did that. And remember when Zelensky was stonewalling? He didn't want any peace talks. Why? Because he had a meeting with the Democrats before he met with President Trump. President Trump put him on blast, let him know what time it was. And see, these senators, they don't care. Lindsey Graham is getting, think about it, he just spent $400,000 over there in Ukraine. So did Senator Blumenthal. On what? Why does he love Ukraine so much? Think about it. Why? What is it about Ukraine? Right now, Ukraine is being ran by a dictator. That's right. Zelensky, the government took over the media. There is no elections. There is zero opposition party. He is literally the supreme ruler of Ukraine. Do you think he wants to give that up? Of course not, because he knows the moment that he does, he may be brought up on charges. He may be liable for war crimes. They've already talked about, not to mention the alleged laundering. Do you know this man said that over 100 million United States dollars, taxpayer dollars, sent to Ukraine, they don't know where they are. And as you're going to see in the next clip, Mitch McConnell, Tim Scott, two Republicans, they addressed where the money has been going. And when you hear where the money's been going, you'll really understand why the snake Lindsey Graham is doing what he's doing. And in that video clip we just watched, where he said, yeah, you know, President Trump said Ukraine doesn't have the cards. Well, you know, the world has more cards, and the Senate, we're going to play them. So what he's doing, to me, it seems like he's throwing the gauntlet down. Excuse me. He's challenging the president. And why would you do that? Why do you do things when we got the Democrats on the ropes? We got the American people really siding with us and riding with us. And you got this right-wing neocon extremist. Yeah, we got extremists on our side too. And he's a right-wing neocon extremist that's a war hawk that wants to send our sons and daughters. I have a son in the military right now. He's in the Navy, stationed in Washington State. And this man who has no legacy in the military. He has no one that he's accountable to that's there, but he wants to send our children over there. And for what? For what, Lindsey? What is the benefit to the United States? They want to keep talking like, oh, it's this big thing. Do you realize that the area of Ukraine that Putin was going after are actually Russian-speaking people that believe in the Russian tradition, that felt like they were left behind when the Soviet Union split? These people are down with it, but Ukraine doesn't want to lose that population, that money, that citizenship. So the battle was on. He's not coming in there trying to take over the entire Ukraine. But why does the media keep pushing it? Why do the Democrats keep bringing up Vladimir Putin as the boogeyman? Why? Why do they make him out to be public enemy number one when a lot of his people love him? But they make him our enemy. And even if he is the enemy, cool. He's over there. We're over here. Ukraine's over there. They're handling their business. And if we can be a mediator, great. But why is it that Putin is always made to be the big bad guy? And we know now that they used him several times in lies. How do we know that this isn't a lie? We're going to know because you're going to hear what RFK is about to tell us. Now, listen to what RFK lays out as far as about what's going on. And this right here is the story headlining. Zelensky thanks U.S. senators for a visit ahead of peace talks, urges unity. Ukrainian president hails bipartisan support as crucial talks with Russia approach. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky praised the visit of U.S. Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal to Kyiv, saying their presence comes at a pivotal moment when international coordination is urgently needed to achieve an honorable and lasting peace. I am grateful that you are in Ukraine precisely when coordination efforts is most needed, Zelensky said following the meeting on Friday, describing it as a good discussion focused on joint efforts to resist Russian aggression and advance peace talks. He accused Moscow of abusing diplomacy while preparing new offenses and rejecting ceasefire offers, warning that additional pressure is needed. Zelensky voiced support for a bipartisan sanctions bill backed by 82 U.S. senators, calling it a key tool to force Russia into peace. The Ukrainian leader also emphasized Washington's role in future talks. It is the United States' real involvement at every stage of the negotiations that can guarantee a reliable peace, he said. Separately, Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal also held a meeting with the bipartisan U.S. Senate delegation, urging tighter sanctions on Russia. Shmyhal said he thanked the senators for introducing a new sanctions bill in Congress and highlighted the importance of seizing frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. We are grateful to the U.S. President, Congress, and the American people for their extensive and significant support to Ukraine in the fight for democratic values and freedom, he said on X. He added that Ukraine is seeking stronger economic cooperation with the U.S., particularly in light of the ongoing war and reconstruction needs. The meetings took place as preparations continue for the second round of Ukraine-Russia talks in Istanbul, where Kyiv insists that Moscow must first submit its memorandum outlining key principles for a settlement. So he's praising these bipartisan senators for coming over there, the two of them, the war hawk and the Democrat Ukrainian sympathizers. And you know, if the Democrats are involved, nothing is beneficial for the United States. They wear Ukraine flags on the congressional floor. How disrespectful. Now, listen to what RFK lays out. And man, sometimes I wonder with the things that RFK tells us, does he have a fear for his life? But check this out right here. As a matter of fact, I'll let this play full screen.
This is a war that should have never happened. It's a war that Russians tried repeatedly to settle on terms that were very, very beneficial to Ukraine and us. The major thing they wanted was for us to keep NATO out of the Ukraine. The big military contractors want to add new countries to NATO all the time. Why? Because then that country has to conform its military purchases to NATO weapon specifications, which means certain companies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, and Lockheed get a trapped market. In March of 2022, we committed $113 billion. Just to give you an example, we could have built a home for almost every homeless person in this country. We then committed another $24 billion since then, 2 months ago, and now President Biden's asking for another $60 billion. But the big expenses are going to come after the war, when we have to rebuild all the things that we destroyed. Mitch McConnell was asked, can we really afford to spend $113 billion to Ukraine? He said, don't worry, it's not really going to Ukraine.
It's going to American defense manufacturers.
So he just admitted it's a money laundering scheme. And who do you think owns every one of those companies? BlackRock. So Tim Scott, during the Republican debate, said, don't worry, it's not a gift to Ukraine, it's a loan. So raise your hand if you think that that loan's ever getting paid back. Yeah, of course it's not. So why do they call it a loan? Because if they call it a loan, they can impose loan conditions. And what are the loan conditions that we impose on? Number one, an extreme austerity program, so that if you're poor in Ukraine, you're going to be poor forever. Number two, most important, Ukraine has to put all of its government-owned assets up for sale to multinational corporations, including all of its agricultural land, the biggest single asset in Europe. In Ukraine, there's been 1,000 years of war fought over that land. It's the richest farmland in the world. It's the breadbasket of Europe. 500,000 kids almost, Ukrainians have died to keep that land as part of Ukraine. They almost certainly didn't know about this loan condition. They've already sold 30% of it. The buyers were DuPont, Cargill, and Monsanto. Who do you think owns all of those companies? Yeah, BlackRock. And then in December, President Biden gave out the contract to rebuild Ukraine. And who do you think got that contract? BlackRock. So they're doing this right in front of us. They don't even care that we know anymore, because they know that they can get away with it. And how do they know that? Because they have a strategy. And that strategy is an old strategy, which is they keep us at war with each other. They keep us hating on each other. They keep the Republicans and Democrats fighting each other, black against white, and all these divisions that they know.
Wow. So as you see, the rabbit hole goes deep, and there's a better understanding of the why. You got people like Lindsey Graham. He's supported by these companies, these war machines, just like Nikki Haley, big war hawk. And we have to watch out for those people that are the war hawks when we're voting for our politicians. Do research. Look at who it is that's sponsoring these people, donate to their campaign. And when you look, and as you know, BlackRock is a power player, but not everybody is sponsored by them. Not everybody accepts that money. Look at those war hawks. I'm sick of this crap. It's time to keep America first. And we got to vote Lindsey Graham out of office. I'm tired of this man. Matter of fact, they say he's going to be primaried. Not primary. There's a Democrat running against him for his seat. I wish we had a conservative that we could put in there and knock it out the park on him. It's just risky to run another Republican, because name recognition, especially when it comes to midterm elections, is everything, because they promote the presidential election heavy. People are so proud they went out and voted for president, because the political machine knows the presidential election has the least impact on our lives and is actually dictated by the Electoral College. So it's nothing more than a way to make the American public feel like they're a part of the political process, which is exactly how Hillary Clinton can win the popular vote but lose the election. That's why Donald Trump, winning the popular and the Electoral College, sent a shock through the Democrat Party, because what they were going to do is, if he won off Electoral College but Kamala Harris won the popular, the Democrats were going to fight to destroy the Electoral College, because they were going to say, see, it doesn't work. The popular vote won at the Electoral College. So when President Trump won, it destroyed their whole agenda going for that, moving forward. But I just wanted to bring you up to speed on what's happening in the GOP. And whoever your senator is, your congressional members are, send them emails, write them letters. You know, it's nothing to send an email. Shoot a text. They have even phone numbers you can text, whether somebody reads it or not. At least we're getting that energy out there. And energy is everything. That's the momentum. That's what swings things. It's the transference of energy to each other that stimulate movements. The MAGA movement is nothing more than energy. President Trump started the ripple and it turned into a tsunami. But it's the energy. When MAGA people get around each other, or people that just love America, that get around each other and get to interacting, it's positive energy. Even when I'm exchanging dialogue with people, with you on my comment section, that's an exchange of energy. So sending that text message to the congressional member, the senator, sending that email, leaving that voicemail, or sending that letter, whether it gets to them or not, the energy is out there, and the energy is everything. So if you've watched up to this point, I really do appreciate it, man. Getting a little tongue-tied in this video. I appreciate it. If you haven't, hit that like button. I really do appreciate it. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Most importantly, though, I want you to be safe and you stay great. I'm Brian Maxwell saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.